What's up YouTube, it's Clormo with another video of my Logic Pro X tutorial series. And today I'm going to be talking about morph controls in Alchemy. This is the last tab of the sources page, but we are quite far from talking about that section in particular, because in the next videos you're going to see we're going to go into the editors for the sources, and there's a bunch of other controls in there that again I want to break down little by little so that you have ability to go to that's shorter. And without further ado, let's just go right into Logic, see if we can get through this a little bit quicker than I expect. So as usual, you have to be in advanced mode. Just a reminder, we are dealing with this tab down here. We already went through A, B, C, D, right? Because 1 covers everything for the same, right? So we already went through all these other parameters, all of them for the sources. And now we're down in the morph section. Notice that right away, the difference when you are in a sub-source page, on a source page I should say, and you're in morph, you kind of see the same thing as global, only that you have these 2 far right areas replaced by 2 other set of parameters. And this is very important to know because that will let you know that you're in the morph area. You could get lost, you know, if you're doing a lot of stuff at once or you're tired or whatever. Just make sure that if you don't see the things that you're supposed to be seeing here when you should be in global or in morph, you know, just make sure that you're in the right one. First things first, the morph controls will determine how all of the 4 sources will interact, and there are basically 2 types of interaction that we can add in Alchemy, and they're determined by these 4 buttons here. So in summary, you have either a crossfading or a morph. So explaining what each one is in understandable terms, a crossfade is just crossfade. So this is now different from turning knobs in an amp and crossfading signals. So in the crossfade mode, you have all your sources are active and they will play simultaneously, and you can control the mix between them, between the 4, by using the XY knob. So the X obviously moves in this direction, so you will be controlling your mix between AC and BD, and with Y you will go in the vertical axis and you will control the mix in that direction. You can also grab this dot and move it in real time and create your crossfade in that way. And this graph is also known as the morph square. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. One other thing that I need to mention for the crossfade is that when you're crossfading from a high tuned source to a lower tuned source, you're basically letting the high source fade out and then the low source will fade in, because you are using the 4 sources simultaneously and then you're controlling the X and Y. So you're easing in, or you can, right, if you select it. If you're in morph mode though, morphing, what's gonna do is just gonna create a single sound that's gonna be generated as Alchemy interpolates between the settings of all these 4 sources. So as opposed to easing in from one source to the other, depending on when you are on the morph square, you're just going to produce a composite of all 4 when you are in morph mode. Another good thing that morphing will let you do is do cross synthesis. So for example, you can add characteristics of one source to a certain element of another source. Let's say A has additive, it has this sampler active, but let's imagine it has granular and it has formants and it has other stuff on, and let's say that B also has different stuffs on. Then morphing will let you introduce elements from A, let's say the formants for example, into the spectral or granular of the B. So that's only possible with morphing. Something that I skipped real quick was I I have a different preset just because I'm gonna play with the parameters at the end a little bit and you're gonna get to hear it. So, but it's just, you know, making sure that we hear something different in every video. One last thing is that before we go into the different settings is that the parameters that are not part of the morph will have a log icon displayed. So let's see which one. Let's go into a morph mode here real quick. And you see it's kind of hard to see maybe, but that there should be like a log icon. So that says that this pop-up, usually every pop-up and every source pop-up or button will not be part of the morphing or cannot be part of the morphing, and all the other knobs then can be morphed. And you'll know, I have mentioned this before, you'll have a orange and green arc around the ones that are active in the morph. Now let's go to the right and let's start with the different modes here. So you have your different morph type buttons. You have let's start from left to right. The crossfade X and Y is the simplest mode and relates to what I said in the beginning. You can control the X and Y percentages of all 4 sources, and you will crossfade the levels between all 4 of them. You can also, again, move that blue dot in real time. When you go to crossfade linear, which is the next one, Xfade Lin would be crossfade linear. Here you can set up your crossfades based on velocity or key follow. In this mode, you don't have the Y knob available because it's linear. So all you can do is do the X, so you can go between A and B, B and C, C and D. Moving to the right, then we start with morphing, and this is a little bit more involved. So morph X and Y, this mode is like crossfade X and Y, but all of the parameters of the sound are morphed. So that has to do with these 2 other guys here. You have all, which I'm going to turn on first, and then you have element. So all will let you view and edit the X and Y values of all active parameters, similar to crossfade, right? It's similar view, but the elements will let you edit X and Y values of 5 parameters. So those 5 parameters are determined by this, right? You have the X and Y, and you have 5 knobs for each. So going from left to right, you can control the parameters for additive, and BA would be in the first knob. Then on the second knob, you can have spec, granular, and or sampler. Then you can have pitch, format, or source filters, and then the envelope. This here are gonna be determined by what you have active in each source, right? So any element that you have active, then it's gonna appear here and you can control it. Those that are default brought by any sound are typically the ones that you're gonna see here. Important to keep in mind that the controls will morph the timing of the sound and will give you very interesting results. You'll have to think about this as mixing. So instead of doing mixing between different instruments, you're doing mixing between different sources for a particular sound, and they all have modulation and effects and all the other stuff that you can put to them, and you're mixing those in a particular manner depending if you're crossfading them or morphing them. Then down here we have the auto gain button and the fixed pitch button, and they're just on and off. The auto gain button will match source levels when it's on. It should give you a smoother morph. If you remember, when you're looking at the levels, the different sources may have different levels determined by the volume knob, and one may be clipping, another not. If you have that auto gain selected, it should help you match those levels between the 4 of them and ensure that you don't have something a little bit higher than something else and introducing weird artifacts on the sound and stuff like that. Then the fixed pitch button similar to other synths that we have seen before. It's like the crossfade linear. It will lock on to a pitch regardless of the morph position. So when you are pressing a note, whatever pitch that has, if you have the fixed pitch, it's gonna lock that pitch for everything. If it's off, you should have the best morphing quality, because remember, if you are going quickly between notes, depending on the attack and release of each of them, the first note is gonna have a lot of influence on the result of the sound if you have fixed pitch on. But maybe that's something that you want to achieve, so just making the note. Now, last but not least, we have Morphing Linear, or Linear Morph. And this mode is again similar to the crossfade linear, but all parameters, all of the sound are morphed. And you notice here that you have all, right? And you can control the X and Y for everything at the same time, or you can go to elements and you can select exactly the same thing as we had here. This is a good time to note as well that you see this, you have 5 different colored dots. So that means that if I go and change something, the color code would let you know where you are in the morph square. And I'm just moving them real time here, just so that you can see them on their own, right? If you bring everything to 0 here, or let's see, to the middle, let's do that. So you have everything there in the middle. If I were to go all the way to 0 on all of them, then they will just be, well, they will all reside on that left corner that they were in the beginning. So that's a morph XY, and in morph linear it's the same thing. If you move something, you're gonna know by the color code what you're morphing and where you are. We have this 3 buttons here, and they are known as the source group buttons. So depending on what group you choose, let's say A and B, you can only morph and only affect the parameters between those groups. You always have the last button here, which lets you morph between all 4 sources. And really, the morph X and Y and morph linear are pretty similar to the other two. You know, the 4 give you either have linear, right? Where you have only the X, or you have X and Y mode. And again, crossfading has all 4 sources at the same time, and you can ease in and out between them depending on where you are on the graph. And morph will just create a composite of all of this. So now let's play a little bit with some of the parameters here, and let's see what we get. Oh, I was clipping there a little bit. I should have put the auto gain on. That's not, what we're hearing is not that great, because unfortunately these sources are a little bit crappy, I would say. But there you get an idea of what you can do. Yeah, the tuning, like I was saying in the beginning, for the crossfading, it's very important, but it also obviously will affect the morphing and will give you better results depending on how you tune your sound. The tuning and the pitch is always going to have an effect on anything. So anyway, I hope that you caught all that. It's not that difficult, I believe, to understand. It's just that what you want to achieve might be a little bit difficult if you don't know what knob does what, right? And it's always an experimentation process, so keep that in mind. You know, don't get frustrated, and I'm sure that you're gonna get creative and get the most out of it. So I will see you in the next video, where no, we're not out of the sources yet. We're gonna go into edit mode, and again, a lot of parameters in there that we'll go through. As usual, thanks to everybody that has subscribed recently. A lot of subscribers in the last few weeks, a lot of comments and questions. There was somebody that asked if I'm gonna bring up the giveaway again. I replied to you in that comment. I'm sorry, but probably not for the rest of the year. There wasn't a lot of interest before. If I see more interest picking up like you just did, then I'll probably reinstate it. Actually, I think I will reinstate it anyway in the future, where I have more subscribers and more interest. But it's gonna be a little bit different. So instead of spanning it through 4 videos, I'll just pick one random video and let's say, okay, this video is going to be part of the giveaway. Stuff like that, you know, try to make it a little bit easier. Now looking back, I realized it might have been a little bit confusing for some people, and I don't blame you. Okay, make sure that you follow me on social media. All my contacts are in the graphic below. Thanks for the support, and peace out, YouTube.